Our clients want to exact impact on the world, really around core four pillars as we see it. So, racial justice, economic justice, climate justice, and gender justice. And really, when they come to us, often it's with this idea of how can we truly activate the full weight of our endowment in support of our programmatic work? So, getting that sort of total enterprise approach across programmatic activities as well as the endowment itself to exact impact across their stakeholder base.
Welcome to Market Makers, a podcast where we talk with innovators and leaders driving change across industries. My name is Troy Duffie, and today we're diving into the world of wealth management, financial strategy, with a focus on diverse leadership and impact investing. Our guest today is our friend Ian Fuller, CEO of Wes Fuller, boutique wealth management firm that's known for its client-centric approach and commitment to fostering financial inclusion. Ian leads the firm's mission to provide high-quality financial advisory services to a diverse range of clients while also prioritizing social responsibility through impact investing. We're excited to hear Ian's insights on building a successful firm in today's evolving financial landscape and how Wes Fuller is making a difference in the community it serves. Let's jump right in. Hi, my name is Troy Duffie. I'm Director of Financial Markets at the Milken Institute.
And I'm Lenore Beirne, the founder and managing partner at Bright Ventures.
Our podcast is focused around inclusive capitalism. For us, that means building an economy that has long-term value that benefits all stakeholders. We're so excited to have you on the show today, Ian.
Ian, I think we should just start with a little bit more information about you and your firm. Do you mind giving us a little bit of background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, name is Ian Fuller. I'm really excited again to be here with you all today. I serve as the co-founder and CEO of Wes Fuller. We're a values-aligned investment advisory firm working with foundations, social justice advocacy organizations, social enterprises, as well as private clients. I also serve as the co-head of Vivian Wes Fuller, which is an outsourced chief investment officer serving a very similar body of clients, but at the higher end, so 50 million and above in sort of overall assets under management. In addition to that, I have the pleasure of serving as the board chair of the Marguerite Casey Foundation, serve on the board of the Impact Assets and chair-elect of the investment committee there, and a number of other extraordinary organizations.
Take us through what your clients are looking for and what they're solving for with an OCIO.
Absolutely. So we're in an extraordinarily privileged position. Our clients want to exact impact on the world, really around core four pillars as we see it. So racial justice, economic justice, climate justice, and gender justice. And really when they come to us, often it's with this idea of how can we truly activate the full weight of our endowment in support of our programmatic work? So getting that sort of total enterprise approach across programmatic activities as well as the endowment itself to exact impact across their stakeholder base.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's exciting to hear that more groups are thinking about total portfolio activation.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard, we'll start smaller, we'll start with a sleeve. There's
Indeed.
this perception of greater risk. Can you tell us about what's motivating clients to take that total portfolio approach?
Well, I think it's everything we see in the world about us, right? We know that there's significant climate inequities. We know that there's significant social inequities. I will note that we have somewhat of a self-selecting group of clients. So the folks that come to us generally have made the decision to go either 100% mission aligned or want to be at that time somewhere on the journey. Some of our clients will decide that they're going to sort of hit 100% mission aligned in 5 years, 10 years, where for us, it's really about meeting them where they are and being a sort of a co-shepherd, if you will, towards that work. And so I think at this stage, we know about the conundrum of the 95-5. I think many leaders at this stage who are running organizations and their brilliant staffs who've been supporting them in so many different regards have said, what can we do to sort of leverage the power of the endowment in service of that 5% as well? Sort of really activating all of the weight of the resources across an organization on behalf of its mission.
Two kind of organic questions that kind of come out of what you just shared. I'm curious to know who you are personally and how you come to this work. I think on top of that, how difficult is it to shift an organization that's not mission aligned to one that is mission aligned in terms of that 95-5 conundrum?
Yeah, fantastic question. So my background is a bit diffusive and disparate. I grew up in a small town in northwestern New Jersey, very rural, small town in which my brother and I were the only kids of color in the community. It was a town of about 15,000. Spent most of my childhood there until I was 14, and then I moved to New York. And so part of the way I sort of see my work now as being a nexus. And I think a lot of that sort of harkens back to those early days of going from very small town, rural community. Then I moved to New York City, where I went to a big high school where there were over 5,000 kids. So the school I had gone to maybe had 200 or so, going to a school of 5,000. Shortly after living in New York, I moved to France and went to boarding school there for a couple of years, my junior and senior year, and then came back and went to NYU. And then I decided I had this like sort of wanderlust and went back to Hong Kong. I say all that to say, like the business we're building, the firm we are building, the kind of clients we serve represents that sort of multiracial global constituency that I grew up with in many respects. That reflects my friends, that reflects the community that I live in. I'm very much a New Yorker in that way. And so that is kind of, if you look at our firm, if you look at our team, if you look at the clients that we serve, it is very reflective of that. In addition to that, what I would say is sort of what fuels the work that I do is coming from that sort of lived experience. My paternal side of my family is from Newark, New Jersey. Both my mother and my father live there now. And if you spent time in Newark, it is an extraordinarily rich culture. There's an amazing sort of history of art and music and social justice advocacy, but it is also facing some of the most significant social inequities that we see across the country. And so when I wake up every morning, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about my father, who lives still up in sort of the hood, if you will, within Newark. I'm thinking about my mother, who lives in the Ironbound. I'm thinking about friends and family and cousins who are still there, and really trying to see how can capitalism sort of be steered in a way that benefits all. How can we really unlock the beauty and the genius in those communities?
Yeah, that's special.
It is really special. Thank you for sharing some of the personal background. I feel like it drives and motivates so many of us in this space. I'm curious, given how important it is to you to see the future really look different from the past and even the present, what do you see as the ripple effect and impact of going to total mission alignment? Like, what will that mean if more endowments choose to take that path?
Yeah, so I think it's a number of things, right? I think there's been so many extraordinary studies that have been done over the last 30 years, right? I was just reading on my way over here and sort of just thinking through one of the new studies that was published by Citibank, seeing, of course, so many of the statistics that I think many of us are very familiar with. But in this particular report, in which they were updating a 2020 study they had done on this sort of racial wealth gap, very specifically, it spoke to, in this updated March 2024 version, sort of the basis of how inequities are, and we know this to be true, right? And what I'll say is something of a platitude, but it's important to cite just the same, that over $21 trillion in overall capital of economic activity is being hindered by the racial wealth gap as we know it. And that's specifically only looking at the Black community, right? So if we think about Black community, the Latinx community, if we think about women, if we think about LGBTQ, if we think about all the sort of impacted, marginalized communities that have been overlooked, I think about the sort of unlocking of prosperity and this sort of spirit of inclusive capitalism that you speak to. I also think about the genius that's like in these communities that has been overlooked, that has been hindered, that has been really sort of impeded from fully realizing its potential, even in this sort of way in which we think about our small firm now having started over 14 years ago, in which we're sort of at this period, and I say this now with all the humility in the world, but sort of like after 10 years being an overnight success, right? In our 14th year, we are now finally starting to get just a tiny bit of scale, and we're still an astonishingly small firm. And so within that context, being a small firm, still being one of the largest Black-owned, Black-operated investment advisory platforms in the country, which is both an extraordinary statement and it's also a painfully dismal one in my mind as well.
Got it. And then in terms of that difficulty, right, of shifting an organization from that's not mission aligned to one that is, what does that look like?
Yeah, so brilliant question. I think, there's an organizing that's necessary, right? And for many organizations, they can take upwards of a decade really to get there. So often when we sort of come in, it's generally speaking, there's been some sort of extraordinary organizer, leader who's either at the board or generally a CEO, the CFO, who are really aligned around a vision of, again, how do we sort of untap the full weight of the endowment on behalf of our mission. And so often what we're seeing is either a turnover in governance, which sometimes is the most disruptive form that we see when we're brought in, and we've seen that happen. Either boards may resign, new committee members are brought in, and so really sort of refreshing what the overall stakeholder base looks like at the governance level who are aligned with the vision moving this direction, right? Sort of taking out those who have a more traditionalist sense of what fiduciary responsibility means
Mhm.
and moving in a new direction. Other times, it's not necessarily as radical or disruptive as that. We can be brought in after an organization has done sort of a journey around its strategic mission. I think in this time and period in which many endowments are either anticipating lower returns, and sort of as they anticipate lower returns, of course, that has an impact on their overall sort of spending and grant making for any given year. And so often what will happen, they'll start to say is that sort of looking at and projecting what those lower spending rates may be, how do we actually get more resources on behalf of the programmatic work that can be coupled with our grant making? And through that process, often we're being brought in.
Mhm.
In regards to the data that represents whether or not impact investing or mission aligned investing, outperforms, where do you come out on that, and how do you make your case to those who shouldn't or who should be thinking about mission aligned investing?
Yeah. So I like to be intellectually honest.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an extraordinary sort of diverse body of research,
Yeah.
right, across a number of very credible research institutions and sources. And what I think we can say confidently is we know that investing for impact, investing for mission does not sort of correlate to a sacrifice of returns. I think often sort of impact investing or mission aligned investing gets conflated with concessionary returns or sacrifice returns, additional sort of risk. And
Mhm.
for, again, those who have a more traditional sense of what a fiduciary is, that can sort of raise certain concerns. One of the things I've been telling a number of our clients and investment committee members is that, in fact, fiduciary responsibility is to the mission. It is not towards financial returns purely. It is not towards financial risk management purely. It is on behalf of the mission. And so, as we sort of think about what's possible within that overall activity, I think many of the organizations that we work with get tremendously excited about that possibility.
Yeah. I love that framing. And I hear in many of your comments this idea of taking a long view.
Yeah.
And if we stand today and we look at the long view, I hear you saying that fiduciary responsibility is to a mission and to a set of risks that actually, when we're honest about them, investing for
Indeed.
mission could actually really tie those things together in
That's
a
exactly
compelling
right.
way. So
That's exactly right.
really appreciate that framing, and congrats on what you've built so far. We can't wait to continue to see what you do.
Thank you.
Is there any other place, undoubtedly, yes, that you're building an inclusive economy that you want our audience to know about?
Yeah, I think there are a number of things that I'm
Mhm.
tremendously excited about. And I
Mhm.
think in our work, and again, as I was reflecting even on my drive over here, it is really just an exciting period to be building a platform, again, that reflects the community that I grew up in, reflects the values. And when I say that, it's about um, bringing in and providing extraordinary high quality jobs for team members. And so we were a small 2-person firm at our founding, myself and my co-founder, and now we're a 20-person firm. And not only are we a 20-person firm providing very high quality jobs, we're certified B Corp, which I'm very proud of because it was a pain in the ass to get.
Yeah.
But I think that fundamentally was reflective of the kind of organization we were trying to build. How do we have maximum impact across our entire stakeholder universe? And so when I think about our ability to have impact with extraordinary brilliance of diverse managers, one case study that we've worked with that I often cite, but one that I'm very proud of, is there's an early stage public equity manager, 2 Black managers who are of immigrant descent, so Francophonic background themselves, really brilliant sort of quant engineers who've designed this public equity strategy that we use in a number of our different portfolios. And when we first met them, they were 2 brilliant portfolio managers who were leaving a very large financial institution. They launched, we were one of their first investors with their overall investment strategy, seeding it with about $25 million. They are now on their way to being a $1 billion manager, and what we believe will be a sort of a next generation leader within the public equity strategy. They're also within that context, and I think this is so true of many diverse managers, they're not only leaders within their own firm, they're leaders within the community, they are leaders in the sustainable sort of global standardization practice, they're professors. And so the sort of multiplier effect that our firm has, that so many other firms begin to have, whether that's the kind of caterers that we hire, we're very much sort of like pro-Black, pro-LGBTQ, pro-women when we're sort of hiring whatever service providers that are doing our work. And so we are, in my mind, just kind of a small microcosm of what it looks like when you give extraordinary opportunity to diverse managers, to diverse operators who've heretofore been sort of unblocked from access and opportunity.
Yeah. Is there any place we can find what you're working on or plug into your work?
Yeah, so a number of our clients really love to talk about our work. As it were, they see sort of narrative change and coalition building as part of it. And so we're in a very privileged position where a number of our clients have either written case studies about the work that we do. And so one of our clients who's very public about our collaboration is the Nathan Cummings Foundation. They've written both white papers. You can see sort of our impact journey alongside them. Another client, the Weisberg Foundation, which is also focused on racial equity, land justice, indigenous rights within the DMV area, also has a lot of great work that we've done in collaboration together on their website as well. So a number of our clients, again, in that spirit of like sharing the work out to the field, sharing what a model looks like, you can identify some of that there.
Fantastic. And knew where to find you on social media.
LinkedIn is certainly the area where you can find me best.
Thank you, Ian. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was great to see you all. Thank you very much for having me.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Market Makers. Major thanks to Ian Fuller for joining us and for sharing his insightful perspective on leadership, wealth management, and the importance of impact investing. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others who are interested in finance and social impact. Be sure to follow the Market Makers on ImpactAlpha and wherever else you listen to podcasts to stay up to date on future episodes featuring more industry leaders and innovators. Thanks again for tuning into Market Makers. I'm Lenore Champagne-Beirne, and remember, building wealth is about more than money. It's about building the future that you want to see.